Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for joining us in our mission to help families grow closer together through reading. We would love for you to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Ghana, Himalaya, Podchaser, Podbean, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Kennedy Reynolds. She'll be here to talk to us about the Acorn app and how we can help our kids become financially literate. It's really important. Hey, before our guest comes in, we gave a sneak preview of the Solve It for Kids podcast here on Reading with Your Kids, and it was so popular, it's like spun off. It spun off into its own thing. And my buddy, our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson, is here to tell us a little bit about what's going on with this great new podcast. Hey, Jennifer, what's up?
Hi, Jed. Oh, I am so excited about our new podcast. We've been getting some great reviews. Everybody wants to find out what's going on and meet and listen to some of our scientists and engineers. We have done how do you map an underwater forest?
Yeah.
We have done how do you cut a person in half safely? Of course.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We have talked about improving your connection with water by going on a water walk, and we have watched Vanessa Brantley Newton create illustrations that come to life.
I took a water walk with my amazing niece. We had such a great time. I didn't fall into the water, but it was really, really fun. And I love the fact that all of our guests are giving our wonderful listeners challenges, really fun challenges that they can do together as a family. And that's so cool. Hey, tell everybody where they can find Solve It for Kids, because it's not on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's its own thing.
So please, if you want to keep listening, go over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and subscribe. And you can download all 4 of the first episodes that we have, plus listen to all the new ones we have coming out. You can also find on Stitcher Radio and, of course, through our website, solveitforkids.com.
Jennifer, thanks so much. Thanks for letting me be part of this awesome, awesome, awesome podcast.
Well, we make a great STEM team, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, join us over at solveitforkids.com. Joining us on the line from Austin and Texas, she's here to talk about a really cool app called Acorns. Please welcome to the show, Kennedy Reynolds. Kennedy, how are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me in that enthusiastic introduction. I wish I could hear. I need that on recording. Like every day when I wake up, I need that energy.
Well,
Thank you for that. I'm so happy to be here.
When this episode is published, you can take the opening of the show and you can use it as your wake up.
I think I might. Yeah, I think I can just turn it into my alarm. Thank you. It's better than like the 6 little pattering feet that come, shake me out of bed.
Yeah, you are the mom to 3 very young kids right now.
I am, yeah. My son is 5. My middle daughter is 3.5, I guess, and my youngest daughter is 1.5, I think. I've lost track of time, so I can't do the month count, but I think we're somewhere around there. Yes.
My wife and I, we're going to start talking about Acorns and really dive into it, but my wife and I have talked a lot about how different life during lockdown would be if our kids, who are now 25 and 28 years old, if this lockdown were happening when they were babies or when they were in high school or in, goodness gracious, God forbid, middle school. Life would have been very, very different for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, congrats on having adults. You obviously did something right, so you can share your notes later. Yeah, I think we're all experiencing this so differently. I have friends with kids of all ages, and I think there's pros and cons to, mine haven't started school yet. So, there's that dynamic, but then I've got my friends who are trying to do the work from home, teach at home thing, virtual school thing. And yeah, so everybody's feeling this in one way or another. Yeah.
Being the parent to really young kids, there's so much going on and so much that we might not think about. And I think Acorns is something that's addressing that. A lot of us, we read to our kids because we want our kids to be literate. We want them to be able to read. And a lot of folks are now talking to their kids about being mindful so they can have a better EQ and be able to handle their emotions better and identify their emotions. One thing that I think that parents overlook is talking to their kids about money and being financially literate. And I think Acorns is something that's going to help with that. Am I right about that?
Man, I hope so. That's a big goal for us. We started, Acorns started as the spare change app. I think that's how most people know us. You can round up and invest your spare change. And then over the past few years, we've realized that there's such a bigger, broader financial wellness gap. So we added, more account types, more products, from the retirement account to the checking account. And then, we always had our eyes on an investment account for kids. And then this year, last year, 2020 happened and we thought, man, if ever there were a time to really expedite a product that helps people invest and save as early as possible, now's the time. So the team, kudos, my hat's off to them, really rallied around, getting Acorns Early out the door. And we've always been very passionate about education. We are partners with CNBC and have such a strong partnership there because we wanted to make sure from the beginning that education underlied the product. And the same thing needed to apply for early, obviously. You need to start these conversations as early as possible. And I think I speak from very personal experience. I mean, I didn't have, and my parents are great, and this is not, Mom and Dad, if you're listening, I love you, you did, I'm so grateful, but we didn't have these conversations. We didn't really get into the details of why you need to save and what investing is and, how early you can start. And so I kind of missed the mark for myself, and then I missed the mark for my kids, or at least my oldest right out of the gate too. Mm-hmm. So I think Acorns Early is really our very passionate attempt to try to make investing for your kids beginning at birth as easy as possible.
Yeah. One thing, I know there are folks out there, and I've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but it bears repeating. There are folks out there who are saying to themselves, why in the world am I ever going to talk to my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, my 9-year-old about money? It's too complicated. Investing, that's way beyond their heads. There's no need to talk to them about that now. But I don't think that we realize that we are talking to our kids about money, and we're not aware of it. When we're talking, I'm not going to say every kid, but there are so many kids out there. The majority of kids out there are hearing at a very young age, they need to go to college. They need to do well in school so they can go to college. And college is such a big deal. And then when those same kids are 16, 17 years old, now they're asked to make a decision where they're going to go to college. They've had no conversations about how they're going to pay for college. And they have, then they're introduced to the idea that, you can take a student loan. And they don't understand what that means to come out of college with a degree and also with a student loan that can be $100,000, $150,000, $200,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would go even further back. I mean, I've got, like I said, a 5, 3, and a 3.5-year-old. The 1.5-year-old obviously is kind of just a little bumbling blob right now, but the other two, they want things. Mm-hmm. They understand birthday, and they understand, for us it's Christmas, and they ask for things and they want things, and there has to be some kind of story around how those things come about, right? It's not just like they come out of thin air, or every kid in the world is as fortunate as you to get these, or, you know, when they are knocking at my door, especially during quarantine, obviously we're all kind of huddled in this house together, and they're banging on the door, you know, when I'm talking to you or one of my colleagues, you have to have that conversation around why mommy has to work. So these like this idea of money, we kind of treat it abstractly, but it really starts for the child really early. And I think, you know, you get into the conversation around chores and allowance and stuff like that, but then for a lot of households, kids will take that money and go straight to the store, you know, the candy store or the toy store or whatever. So it's great that we're introducing the concept of, you know, work to earn, if that's something that you believe in your house. But then once you earn the money, and this is actually a big message that we try to convey with our checking account, you know, that we have a feature where when you get your paycheck, you can automatically distribute it into savings and investment accounts. Like getting the paycheck is just the first step, kind of, right? Like getting the money from your chores is just the first step, but how do you educate the child that money doesn't then just go to the store? You know, I'm so excited seeing some of these movements towards like the savings jar and the investment jar and the spending jar and the giving jar. How do you really start the conversation as early as possible, even before, you know, they have to start thinking about college loans, to really get them in that mind frame? My husband, his parents were, his dad is a banker, a small town banker in Missouri, and his mom, was born and raised in Germany, during the war. And so they both kind of came at raising their children from a very, financially conservative educational place. And when they had one TV in the house, and when he wanted to watch it, his mom had a box on top of the TV, and he had to put a quarter in every time he wanted to watch 30 minutes of TV, which I thought was like, it was just such a smart thing to do. Not, you know, I know we don't want to be too rigid and making our kids pay for everything every fun thing that we introduce to them, but just the idea that early on you start to think about and the idea of an exchange and the value of money. So yeah, I mean, I really hope that with Acorns Early and some of the other products out there, and you doing the work that you're doing to try to spread the word, and some really other good resources, that kids and families start to consider this as just a fundamental, we absolutely have to have this conversation as early as possible.
Yeah. So tell us, how does Acorns Early work?
Yeah. So, let's see. So if you step back, Acorns, the saving and investing app, we have three kind of product tiers. So we have an investment, the Acorns Lite tier, where you get your investment account. You can have Acorns Personal, where you get an investment account, a retirement account, and your spend account. And then with Early, we launched Acorns Family. So with Acorns Family, you get Acorns Early, which is the investment account for kids, and then you get everything else that I just mentioned. Early specifically, so you would go to your app store or to acorns.com, you would download Acorns, and then you would sign up for the family tier. And like I said, with that, you will automatically get Acorns Early. Now, Acorns Early allows you to open as many investment accounts as children you have or children you care about. You don't need to be a parent. All you really need is the child's social security number to get started, and it takes about 2 minutes to set up the account. So like I said, we've tried to make it as frictionless as possible, really, really easy. And you can begin as soon as you've got that social security number in hand. So from my experience, that can take about 2 to 6 weeks from the time the child's born. And it's just incredible when you look at, you know, the impact of that. If you take 2 minutes, let's call it 2 to 5 minutes, if you're not an Acorns customer yet, 2 to 5 minutes out of your day, to sign up for Acorns Early, and you start investing just kind of like $5 a day, at about an average 8% return, that adds up to millions, by that child's age of retirement. So, and, you know, $5 a day can be a lot for people. So take that to $5 a week or $5 a month. We let you pick the amount. We let you pick, the frequency. But the bottom line is that kind of in the background of life, you can just set up an automatic recurring investment for your kid. And then when they turn what's called their age of transfer, which is typically about 18 to 21, depending on what state you live in, that money gets transferred over to their own Acorns Invest account where they can just keep, accruing that wealth.
Yeah. What a great way, I think, to talk to kids, like really concrete way to talk to kids about investing and savings. And I think that idea of savings is something that it kind of, there's a generation of folks who kind of skipped it. It was important. I used to hear that when I was a kid. Our school set up a situation where everybody got a savings account when they were in kindergarten. We would bring money into school that would then go into our savings account automatically. The school kind of did that. And then that kind of, it was. And it kind of went away. How would you talk to kids, your kids, as your kids are growing? What kind of things can you talk about as you're talking to them about, hey, I have this Acorns account for you, and every week we're doing this, and that means that when you get to be 18 or 30 or 65, you're going to have this much money. How would you talk to your kids about that?
Well, I think I'd be arrogant to assume I know what it is like to talk to older kids. I'm not at the middle school, high school level yet, but I know with my kids, I underestimated how much they would get it. And I think I actually approached it when we launched early, and I took them through the sign up process. So I was signing up for my early account in their names, and they did that with me, and I got to have the conversation about, so you know how you want XYZ for your birthday. Well, I'm going to put a certain amount of money in this account that has your name on it, and I showed them their name and the squirrel, and we've made it a more playful experience than the rest of the products that are more adult focused. And I said, I'm going to put, a little bit of money, here's how much away, and then by the time your birthday comes around, we'll see how much is there, and if we're able to use any of that. Obviously, our accounts are more long-term focused, but I found that if you give a 5-year-old something that they can really understand, I want the superhero toys for my birthday, and then they start to see that what started out at $5 is now $20 or whatever it is, a few months later. Then it makes more sense to them. Oh, okay. So now, and then you have the process of, so now we go to the store, and, secretly I would probably leave the money in the early account, because the longer it stays in there, the more you can benefit from compounding. But the child now has this kind of association with thing at store is possible because of money that mommy and daddy or, whomever takes care of the child put away. So I think it's just for me and the ages that my children are, it's really about inviting them into the experience, and instead of kind of transcribing it to them, and then tying that line between thing you want, which is on their minds all the time, thing you want, and here's how we get that thing. Yeah. And then I would assume, and I'll see what the process is like as my kids get older, but I would assume that kind of translates as they get older too, right? Then they want to have a car when they turn 16, or they want to have, they want to go to college or vocational school, or they want to travel before they go off to school. All these things require that you actually start planning in advance. I think that, for me anyway, that was the real kind of shock. And I'm fortunate to have had the upbringing that I had. So I know this is not in any way the case for everybody, but in my personal experience, I, went to college and got out and was like, okay, I really better get up to speed on how this works. So I think as early as you can just start drawing that, creating that tissue between outcome and saving, the better.
Yeah. How would you use the Acorn app, and what age do you think it's important to talk to kids about the difference between needs and wants? You want this thing, but a lot of times kids in their mind, they translate that into, I need this toy. I really need this toy.
So urgent. It's so urgent. Yes. Yeah, there is a comedian that has a great routine about taking a child to the cereal aisle. And how overwhelming it can be to need all of those cereals. So I guess on need versus wants, I try to, I'm the example that's popping into my mind right now is that my son always needs to take a toy to the playground, which he'll take, we'll take the toy and then he leaves the toy somewhere and now we've lost the toy and he never wanted to play with the toy. We're going to a playground. Right. You don't need a toy. It's a whole park full of toys. I think being present in that moment to kind of say on the way home, hey, listen, remember how you had to go back and pick up that toy that we brought? You didn't really need it. You kind of wanted it because you wanted to take something with you that was yours and have a thing. But really you got to the playground and you could just play. So I think right now, again, my kids ages 5, 3, and 1, it's really about jumping on the moment when it happens to kind of use that as an example of need versus want. And then we do a lot of trying to talk to them about, how people live all over the world, and that need is very relative. Whether you need food and water and shelter versus, you need this toy, this thing, this, so we try to do as much education around that as we can. And as far as, I think your other question was around when to start. I mean, my son turned 5 a few months ago. And I think that for me felt like a really, really good time to start talking about it. Obviously we started kind of, we had a nest egg for him, as soon as he was born. But I think for us, if I had started the conversation earlier than that, it would have, specifically about money, it would have gone over his head. We did start, with my 3-year-old, we do a lot of talking around, how like toys come to be and trying to kind of why mommy and daddy work and what that translates into as far as food on the table in the house, just to start that conversation.
Yeah. You talked a little bit, about how in talking about finances and the difference between needs and wants, you talk about how people live around the world and how we all don't live in the same circumstance and we all have different challenges. I remember when my kids were young, we were sponsoring a young student in India, and we had just received a letter from him, and we're so happy we did it. We're friends with him now. He's graduated. He's doing amazing things with his life for the people in his communities. But I remember on this one particular day, I think my kids were 7, maybe the other one was 9. I'm not sure. But we're talking about it, about the letter in the car on the way to Costco. And we went into Costco, and it was Saturday morning, and every aisle there was somebody giving out another sample of food. And it was wonderful. And so we're walking around, and we're just gorging on all these different treats and tastes. Sure. And it was wonderful. And then when we got back in the van, and I thought to myself, wow, and we talked to the kids about it, it's like, wow, we just ate more for free than a lot of people get to eat in a week. Yeah. It's really remarkable. And I think in some ways, I mean, we could get into a whole conversation about this. I think in some ways, technology is making it easier for us to, help our kids understand how other cultures and other places and other people live. And in some ways, we've distanced ourselves even more from the realities of most of the world. So I do feel like I have pretty sensitive kids sometimes, much to my chagrin, a little oversensitive when I need them to stop crying. But I have found that, having that conversation and even showing them pictures of refugee camps or, some of the foundations that we support, that really makes things very personal for them. We've had those moments, and we had a lot of them around the holidays, where we kind of talk about, we're going to take a little bit of money and, what we can, and we're going to give it to this foundation. And here, let's look at some pictures. These are some kids, and here's how they live and what they need. And then you'll have, and you'll be sitting at the table at Thanksgiving, and, my son will reference that conversation. So, that it's sticking a bit. And I think it's worth the work. It's worth trying to get those messages across. And then again, back to,
hopefully what will be a possibility in the near future is that we can, travel around and see more people and places and make sure our kids understand the value of money for all of us.
Absolutely. So very, very important. Kennedy, where can folks go to learn more about Acorns Early, about the Acorns app, and about all those other resources that you're offering to families to talk to kids about finances?
Sure. Well, you can go to acorns.com, acorns with an S, acorns.com, and then go to your app stores and search for Acorns. It takes no time to download and under 5 minutes to sign up. And like I said, we offer kind of the full savings and investing spectrum for individuals and families. You do not need to be a parent to sign up for an early account. If you are a guardian or look after a kid or an aunt or an uncle, really, if you have any child in your life that you want to make their future better, Early is here for you. So I'd encourage everybody to check it out.
Excellent. We've had a great time speaking to Kennedy Reynolds about the Acorns app and Acorns Early. Kennedy, thanks so much for being with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for getting the word out there about how important this is. I really appreciate it.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Father James Martin, one of my favorite authors. He'll be here to celebrate Learning to Pray, brand new book from Father James Martin. Hey, I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. I want to thank our guest, Kennedy Reynolds, and all the folks over at Acorns. Thank you very, very much. Be sure to check out the Acorn app. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my amazing interns, Alexia Brown, Hannah Pat Oboyski. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me, but most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.